Welcome to Hockeywiztalks podcast. Today I'll be wrapping up the 2018-2019 NHL season, and I will also be analyzing the Stanley Cup Finals. 2018-2019 season wrap-up. The 2018-2019 regular season was dominated by the Tampa Bay Lightning, who won the President's Trophy and had a 62-16-4 record. Nikita Kucherov was the leading point scorer in the regular season, with 128 points, earning his first Art Ross Trophy. Kucherov is the leading candidate for the Hart Trophy, but also in consideration for the Hart Trophy is Connor McDavid, who had 116 points. Although the Oilers didn't make the playoffs, McDavid is the main reason why they weren't dead last. Alex Ovechkin led the league in goal scoring yet again, notching his 8th career 50-goal campaign, securing yet another Rocket Richard Trophy. The Norris Trophy race is really tight this year. The candidates are Mark Giordano, Brent Burns, and Victor Hedman. Personally, I think Mark Giordano should take it because he had the best plus-minus in the league, and he helped guide the Flames to the best record in the Western Conference. The candidates for the Vezina Trophy are Andrei Vasilevskiy, Robin Lehner, and Ben Bishop. But personally, I think Sergei Bobrovsky should have been a finalist because without him, the Blue Jackets aren't a playoff team. The Stanley Cup playoffs this year was not really that interesting after the first round. Some of the best series in the playoffs this year actually took place in the first two rounds, and it showed in the ratings, as the first two rounds of the 2019 playoffs was the most watched on record since 1994, when People Meters first included cable ratings. Because the ratings have been so good in the 2019 playoffs, I don't expect the NHL to change the playoff format anytime soon. Changing the playoff format has actually been widely discussed on NHL forums, but if the ratings are good, there is no reason for the NHL to change the current format. The officiating was also a controversial topic this season, as one blown call almost dictated the Stanley Cup playoffs. I think the video review process could be improved, especially with what can be challenged. Right now, the only two things a coach could challenge is for offsides and goaltender interference, but I think a coach should be able to challenge for other reasons as well. For example, in the Western Conference Finals, Erik Karlsson of the San Jose Sharks scored the game-winning goal in Game 3 against the St. Louis Blues after a blatant hand pass. The coach should have been able to challenge that play because the play should have been blown dead on a hand pass. Of course, if you add additional situations where you could use a challenge, it would slow down the game, but it would lessen the controversy. On the other hand, maybe that is what the NHL wants. They want to create controversy, to generate buzz, and what better way to do it than to have a blown call in the playoffs. This season has been full of unseen twists and turns, with the Tampa Bay Lightning getting swept in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs by the Columbus Blue Jackets. The Calgary Flames, the teams that had the best record in the Western Conference, ended up losing to the Colorado Avalanche in 5 games in the first round of the playoffs. As a matter of fact, the only top seed that made it past the first 2 rounds of the playoffs was the Boston Bruins, who beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in 7 games. The defending Stanley Cup champions Washington Capitals lost in 7 games to the upstart Carolina Hurricanes, and the Winnipeg Jets, who went to the conference finals last year, lost to the St. Louis Blues in the first round. The Nashville Predators, who were favorites to make a deep playoff run, lost in the first round to the Stars in 6 games. The best series by far this postseason was between the San Jose Sharks and Vegas Golden Knights, where the Sharks won the series in 7 games. The New York Islanders swept the Pittsburgh Penguins in the first round, only to be swept by the Carolina Hurricanes in the second round. The Boston Bruins beat the Columbus Blue Jackets in 6 games in the second round to send them to the conference finals. The San Jose Sharks beat the Colorado Avalanche in the second round in 7 games to advance them to the conference finals, while the St. Louis Blues beat the Dallas Stars in 7 games to send them to the conference finals. In the conference finals, the Boston Bruins swept the Carolina Hurricanes, while the St. Louis Blues beat the San Jose Sharks in 6 games to advance to the Stanley Cup Finals. This set up a Stanley Cup Finals matchup between the St. Louis Blues and Boston Bruins. And now a word from our sponsor, Stanley Cup Finals Analysis. The Stanley Cup Finals between the Boston Bruins and St. Louis Blues has been a relatively tight checking series, with the exception of one game when the Boston Bruins blew out the Blues 7-2. The Boston Bruins won Game 1 4-2 as they scored 4 consecutive goals to secure the win. Braden Shen and Vladimir Tarasenko scored to give the Blues a 2-0 lead. Then the Bruins got goals from Connor Clifton and Charlie McAvoy to tie the game at 2. Sean Kuraly scored the go-ahead goal in the 3rd period, and Brad Marchand scored the 4th goal for Boston. The Blues tied the series at 1 by winning Game 2 in overtime. The two teams traded goals in the first period, then there was no scoring for the remainder of the game. The Bruins got goals from Charlie Coyle and Joakim Nordstrom, and the Blues got goals from Robert Bortuzzo and Vladimir Tarasenko. Carl Gunnarsson scored his first goal this postseason to win the game for the Blues in overtime. Game 3 was dominated by the Bruins as they chased Jordan Binnington after scoring 4 goals in 5 shots. The 5-on-5 play was actually pretty even, but the Bruins scored 4 power play goals, and that was the difference in the game. The Bruins won the game by a final score of 7-2, as Torrey Krug recorded a 4-point night and Tuukka Rask made 27 saves. The St. Louis Blues won Game 4 to even up the series at 2. The Blues had 2-1 lead heading into the second period as they got goals from Ryan O'Reilly and Vladimir Tarasenko. Charlie Coyle got the lone goal for Boston in the first period. In the second period, Brandon Carlo scored a short-handed goal to tie the game at 2. Ryan O'Reilly scored his second goal of the night in the third period to give the Blues a 3-2 lead, and Braden Shen added an empty net goal. The biggest fallout from Game 4 was that Zdeno Chara was injured, leaving his status for Game 5 up in the air. Game 5 was very tight checking, as there were only 3 total goals scored in the game. Ryan O'Reilly had a goal and an assist to lead the Blues to a 2-1 victory. The Boston Bruins are led in scoring by Brad Marchand with 21 points, Patrice Bergeron and David Pastrnak with 17 points, and Torrey Krug, who has 16 points. Tuukka Rask has been outstanding this postseason. He has a 14-7 record with a 1.96 GAA and .938 save percentage. The St. Louis Blues are led in scoring by Jaden Schwartz, who has 18 points, Ryan O'Reilly, who has 17 points, Vladimir Tarasenko with 16 points, and Alex Pietrangelo, who has 15 points. Jordan Binnington has been good this postseason. He has a 14-9 record with a 2.52 GAA and .909 save percentage. With the St. Louis Blues up 3-2, they are only 1 win away from winning their first Stanley Cup in franchise history. However, I expect the Boston Bruins to give it everything they have to force a Game 7. Boston Bruins win if their top line continues to dominate and Tuukka Rask is stellar in goal. St. Louis Blues win if they get scoring from all 4 lines and they get great goaltending from Jordan Binnington. The St. Louis Blues seem to be a better road team, so it wouldn't shock me if the Bruins won Game 6 to force a Game 7. In my next podcast, I'll be doing a mock draft of the 2019 NHL Draft.